Hello students, history is full of stories of grit and inspiration. Today, let us look at some of the scientific and technological inventions of the 18th century that shaped the modern world. But before that, let us enjoy a moment of laughter with Goa's ace comedian John De Silva.
तुमने तुम्हारी गाड़ी मेरे गाड़ी पे ठोक के मेरा गाड़ी का बम्पर तोड़ दिया। अरे तुमको मालूम है ना ये रास्ता कितना छोटा है, एकदम नैरो है, सिर्फ एक ही गाड़ी जा सकता है, एक ही गाड़ी आ सकता है। मैं आ रहा था, तुम क्यों आया?
मेरे को मालूम है रास्ता नैरो है।
फिर
मैंने तेरे को फुल लाइट मारी थी, तेरे को दिखा नहीं?
दिन में फुल लाइट क्यों मारा? तू अंधा हो गया, दिखता नहीं क्या?
अरे पागल, फुल लाइट का मतलब है स्टॉप, रुको रुको।
अच्छा
हाँ,
और मैंने वाइपर मारा था, वो नहीं देखा था। वाइपर का मतलब क्या है?
क्या है?
आने का नहीं, आने का नहीं, आने का नहीं।
That was a good one. Our cars have lights, wiper, AC, music system, and all these are innovations that make our life convenient. This was exactly the effort way back in the 18th century when the new inventions reduced manual labor. How was that? Let us learn about it in our chapter, The Age of Industrialization. Time does change things, and the sweeping changes brought by the Industrial Revolution left a permanent mark on society. As wealth increased, classes shifted, and nations began assuming national identities. It was British economic thinker Arnold Toynbee who used the term Industrial Revolution to describe England's economic development from 1750 to 1850. This was the first phase of the Industrial Revolution, and the second phase began in 1850 and is still in progress till today. So what process did Arnold Toynbee refer to as the Industrial Revolution? He referred to the major changes in the means of production, distribution, and the exchange of commodities which resulted from inventions. Before this transition, there was the domestic system of production in which goods were produced on a small scale with hand-operated machines according to the needs of the people. This was replaced by the Industrial Revolution by providing a faster method of production. Now the workers were concentrated in a set location and the factory would anticipate the demand for a product. For better understanding, under the domestic system, a lady would select a fabric and give it to a home-based tailor to stitch a dress. Under the factory system, the factory owner bought lots of popular fabric and had workers create multiple dresses in common sizes, anticipating that women would buy them. I'm sure that most of you can relate to this, as every mobile in hand has an online shopping app. A major highlight of the Industrial Revolution was the steam energy that replaced human energy. Machines reduced the amount of manual labor involved in production. The age of steam was inaugurated by James Watt by modifying Thomas Newcomen's steam engine. The Industrial Revolution began in England, and therefore England is known as the mother of the Industrial Revolution. Let us now consider the major factors that led to the Industrial Revolution in England. 5 major factors we are looking at: its geographical location, availability of capital, availability of natural resources, availability of labor, and scientific and technological knowledge. The geographical location of England played a very important role. Being separated by water from mainland Europe, England was far from battles, damage, or loss of life. The humid climate of England also benefited the establishment of textile industries. We know that India was a colony of the British, so was America and Africa. The huge profits that they earned from their trade in the colonies was invested in technological developments. Furthermore, the Bank of England and its credit system made capital available to investors. England had an abundance of natural resources like coal, iron, and mineral fuels. New techniques for the manufacture of iron and utilization of coal was possible due to the availability of coal and iron ores in large quantities, and it greatly helped the growth of numerous industries in England. Labor was readily available to the factories for two reasons. One, people from other European countries migrated to England either to avoid religious persecution or to find employment. Secondly, landless farmers lost their land, work, and livelihood to the enclosure movement, and this provided a perennial source of labor to the British manufacturers, not only to operate the existing industries but also to start new ones. England had scientists who were constantly experimenting with patronage from rulers. It was the invention of a number of machines in England that led to the establishment of the factory system. Thus, the Industrial Revolution began in England as new machines were invented. What speeded up its process was the modification of steam engine by James Watt. This surpassed all other sources of power and came to be used in textile industry, iron and coal industry, transportation industry, and many other industries. The earliest mechanical inventions had taken place in the textile industry. This transformed the British cotton industry, and England became famous as the workshop of the world. The transformation of raw cotton to finished cloth had to undergo two stages: spinning and weaving. Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin, a machine that separated raw cotton from its seeds that made available large amounts of cotton for processing. James Hargreaves discovered the spinning jenny, a machine that could spin 8 threads at the same time, thus doing the work of 8 laborers. Richard Arkwright invented the water frame, a machine that could spin a stronger thread. Its main advantage was that it could be operated with water. Samuel Crompton invented the mule, a machine that would spin not only stronger threads but was faster than the earlier machines. John Kay invented the flying shuttle, a machine that would move back and forth on wheels with yarn attached to it. This machine could do double the amount of work a weaver could do in a day. Edmund Cartwright invented the power loom, a machine that speeded up the process of weaving and operated on water. Without coal and iron, the Industrial Revolution would not have been possible. Coal provided the power to drive the steam engines, and iron was used to build machines, tools, bridges, and ships. The coke smelting process was invented by Abraham Darby, and his advancement in iron and brass turned Great Britain into an important brass goods exporter. The safety lamp was invented by Sir Humphrey Davy for the safety of miners working in the coal mines. This lamp issued a warning to the miners when the level of carbon dioxide in the mines would increase, thus posing danger to their lives. The Industrial Revolution also brought major changes in the transportation industry, as new ways had to be found to transport goods produced in the factories to distant markets. A new process of building roads was discovered by John Macadam, wherein he used a mud binder between 2 layers of stone. Mud was later replaced with tar. Moving from the roadways to waterways, canals were dug to transport coal. In 1761, the first canal was dug from Worsley to Manchester to carry coal from the mines to the furnaces. Robert Fulton discovered the first steamboat called Clermont, which sailed from New York to Albany in just 32 hours. The invention of railways provided transportation that was faster and economical. The first steam locomotive rocket was invented by George Stephenson. The first railway line was laid from Manchester to Liverpool in 1830, and the first railway line in India was laid by Lord Dalhousie in 1853. I'm sure all of you have a Facebook or Instagram account and are on WhatsApp as well. This kind of communication was not possible in the olden days. The Industrial Revolution witnessed advancement in long-distance communication for the very first time. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, which never looked like any of our mobiles. Guglielmo Marconi invented wireless telegraphy, and Rowland Hills came up with the idea of penny post. Agricultural Revolution is also considered to be a part of the Industrial Revolution. New machines, new crops, and fertilizers were produced. Jethro Tull started the scientific cultivation of crops and invented a seed drill and a horsepower hoeing machine for cultivation. Townshend invented the crop rotation system, and Bakewell invented the technique of scientific breeding of animals. All these inventions led to the enclosure movement, displacing farmers from their lands. The colonial rule adversely affected India, destroying its rich and stable economy. The British used their political supremacy to exploit the raw resources of India. The introduction of railways gave a death blow to the Indian economy, and now it was possible to transport resources even from the most remote part of India. The charges for the transportation of Indian goods was higher than for British goods, which increased the prices for Indian goods and thus decreased their demand. The British promoted the cultivation of commercial crops such as cotton, tea, coffee, and indigo. As a result of British policies, a number of traditional handicraft industries closed down, and commercial cities like Dhaka, Murshidabad, Surat lost their ancient glory. Positive effects of the Industrial Revolution. Production with machines led to large-scale production of goods, and railways and waterways increased the mobility of people and goods. Scientific cultivation of crops increased the quality and quantity of food grains. The different sources of energy reduced manual work, increased the living standard of the people, and industrialization brought nations closer through trade. Negative effects of the Industrial Revolution. Exploitation of workers. The factory owners had just one aim, that was to increase their profits. Since there were more laborers than the demand, workers had no option but to work for long hours for less wages. Men, women, and children were compelled to work in unhygienic conditions. Mine owners preferred to employ children as they could easily go down the mines. The factories too preferred children as their small fingers could easily operate the machines. They had to work for 10 to 14 hours with minimal breaks and in dangerous places, leading to injuries and even death. As Europeans colonized Asia and Africa, these nations lost almost everything. They lost their political freedom, they lost their economic prosperity, and they lost local handicraft industries. Pollution was a direct result of the steam engine. With industries springing up everywhere, air and water pollution became rampant. The sanitation issues with no collection of refuse, coupled with air and water pollution, affected the health of urban people and led to waterborne diseases. These were the negative effects of the Industrial Revolution. Thus, we can conclude that the Industrial Revolution was a boon as well as a bane. It brought about radical changes in the political, social, economic, and cultural life of the people and nations, thereby laying the foundations of the modern society. Thank you.